Ayan shivered as he stepped through the rusted gate, the metal creaking under his touch. He had heard the rumors. Everyone had. A house that whispered at night, doors that locked themselves, shadows that moved when no one was looking. But Ayan didn't believe in ghosts. He was here because he had no choice. His uncle had left him the property in his will, a gift wrapped in dust and decay. Ayan had planned to sell it, but the paperwork required an inspection. So here he was, armed with a flashlight and a growing sense of unease, ready to face whatever secrets the house had kept hidden for so long. The door swung open without resistance, the scent of damp wood and something faintly metallic filling his lungs. The floor groaned beneath his weight as he stepped inside, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The walls were lined with old, peeling wallpaper, the pattern barely visible under years of grime. Dust floated in the air, disturbed by his presence. He took a step forward and the door slammed shut behind him. Ayan whirled around, his breath catching in his throat. He reached for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. "Hello?" he called, his voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Then, a sound. Faint at first, like the rustling of leaves, but it grew louder, whispers, overlapping, weaving into each other like a chorus of unseen voices. Ayan swung his flashlight toward the stairs. The beam flickered. Something moved at the top of the staircase, a shadow shifting just beyond the reach of the light. Ayan swallowed hard, forcing himself to take slow, steady breaths. This was an old house. Houses creaked, noises echoed. There had to be a logical explanation. He stepped forward. The whispers stopped. The silence was worse. With each step, the air grew heavier, pressing against his chest. The wooden steps felt unsteady beneath his feet, but he kept moving, drawn toward the darkness above. At the top of the stairs, a hallway stretched before him, lined with doors that seemed too many for the size of the house. His flashlight flickered again. The battery was new. This wasn't supposed to happen. Then, a door creaked open. Ayan turned slowly, the beam of his flashlight illuminating the entrance to a room at the end of the hall. The air felt colder here, thick with something he couldn't name. He stepped inside. The room was small, barely furnished. A wooden chair in the center, a cracked mirror hanging on the wall. His reflection stared back at him, but something was wrong. The face in the mirror didn't move as he did. It just watched him, its eyes dark and empty. Ayan took a step back. The reflection did not. His breath hitched as the figure in the mirror slowly raised its hand. But Ayan had not moved. Then it smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that spread too wide, stretching the skin in a way that wasn't human. Ayan stumbled back, his flashlight slipping from his grip. It hit the floor with a clatter, the beam spinning wildly across the room. The whispering returned, louder this time, filling the space like a rising tide. Then a voice, not a whisper, not a murmur, but a clear, guttural voice that spoke from the darkness. "You shouldn't have come." The chair in the center of the room scraped against the floor as if something unseen had moved it. The walls seemed to close in, the air thickening with the scent of rot. Ayan turned, bolting for the door. But the hallway was no longer there. Instead, he stood in a corridor that stretched endlessly, doors lining both sides, each one slightly open, each one whispering. He spun around, his breathing ragged. The room behind him was gone. The mirror was gone. He was trapped. The whispers grew louder, urgent, frantic. "Run!" Ayan didn't think, he just ran. His feet pounded against the wooden floor, the flickering light casting shifting shadows on the walls. The doors blurred past him, their whispers growing into screams. Then, a door ahead burst open. A woman stood there, or what was left of her. Her skin was pale, stretched tight over sharp bones. Her eyes were hollow pits, her mouth a gaping wound that twisted into something that might have once been a smile. Ayan skidded to a stop, his body frozen in sheer terror. The woman tilted her head, her voice a rasping whisper. "He's waiting!" Ayan turned to run, but the hands were already reaching for him. Cold, skeletal fingers wrapping around his arms, his legs dragging him backward into the darkness. He screamed. The house swallowed the sound. And then there was silence. The next morning, the house stood as it always had, silent, forgotten. But if one listened closely, if one dared to step inside, they might hear it. The sound of whispers, a voice calling for help, a new ghost added to the house that remembers.